Hello and welcome to the Athletics college football coverage. I am David Ubben, senior writer for the Athletic, here with our resident texpert, Sam Kahn. Sam, the SEC dropped their 2024 schedule, and even though we knew it was coming, we've been ready for it. Been years in the works. It's real and it's spectacular, Sam. Texas will be at Kyle Field at a TBD date in
Woo!
sure you'll be there. I hope I am there. I was at the final game 13 years ago. One of the most memorable nights of work that I've ever had. Sam, you wrote about it for us. What does this mean to the Lone Star State?
Gosh, it's long overdue. And I wrote this in a column at the Athletic last night. It's a damn shame that we had to wait more than 12 years. It'll be 13 years by the time this game kicks
Mm-hmm.
off for the 119th edition of this rivalry. But it's better late than never, because when the breakup first happened and A&M left to go to the SEC while Texas stayed in the Big 12, we weren't sure if it would ever happen. I think at first we kind of took it for granted that maybe it would, and eventually hard feelings would pass over, but they never really did
Yeah,
on
you've
either
had
side.
turnover at AD and it didn't change anything.
Yeah, and I said it. Administrators, school officials gave a lot of lip service to the rivalry, but not really much else, at least from a football standpoint. They've gotten together in other sports, but I'm so excited for it because it's the two biggest programs, two flagship programs in a football crazed state, and they're 100 miles apart. There's no reason why they shouldn't play. It's so much fun. There's so much emotion involved. There's so much intensity in the rivalry. And there's so much pettiness too, because we had this whole thing before this announcement leading up with Ross Bjork, the A&M athletic director, saying, well, the first game is going to be at Kyle Field. I know that. And Chris Del Conte at Texas saying, well, that's just internet fodder. We haven't heard that from anybody official. Well, Ross was right. And so they're always going to he was right. And they're going to end up getting the game at Kyle Field. And that's great. But it didn't really matter in the long run. But ultimately, and you wrote this in a column really well, David, is realignment has broken up a lot of rivalries, and it broke this one up. This is a nice impact where the domino effect brought one back together. And I'm really
Mm-hmm.
grateful because we as a state need it. I'm used to eating Thanksgiving dinner and then watching Texas A&M play. That's what I want to do on in Thanksgiving 2024.
And they will, at least the ADs will play nice. Nobody ever likes my Texas Motor Speedway idea, Sam.
It's
And
too big.
I
It's
ran,
so big.
Listen, I know it would be terrible, but it would also be awesome, much like realignment itself. But I did, when I was in Destin for the SEC's meetings, I saw Ross and Chris at the at the hotel. I did run my idea by them, and Chris said, if we did that, I would get fired and Ross would get fired.
Yes. Yeah.
As a pure lover
There's
of
no way.
spectacle.
They spent all this money to redevelop Kyle Field. They spent all this money to redevelop the end zone at DKR. There's no way you outsource that game after spending hundreds of millions of dollars to redo those stadiums. No way.
One time, that's all I ask. One time. I will say, last night I was kind of thinking about it, and I didn't reference it in the column, but I did think about it. It was a little bit bittersweet still for me, because even though Texas is still with Oklahoma and back with Texas A&M, and it don't really make
Arkansas.
and Arkansas, they're big rivals. Those games across the state of Texas still mean a lot, and it felt a little bittersweet to me that the price of getting the A&M game back is we lose Texas Tech, Texas Baylor, Texas TCU. That's not great. I get it. It is what it is. I'm not surprised by it. I mean, nothing in college sports and realignment moves should surprise you, but again, this is becoming a sport with less and less regional identity, and that's unfortunate. But
Yeah, I'm
the
with you
games
on
will be
that. The
here.
thing is I think you would agree with me, is that I miss the Southwest Conference, buddy. I really do. And
It's
what
an
would this
incredible idea culturally and a terrible idea financially. That's
what
what I
would the
always keep coming
Southwest
back to.
Conference be in a above board NIL era? I mean, Sherwood Blunt, where have you gone, sir?
Rosters built by oil, baby.
That's right. R.I.P. Dick Lowe.
Yes. But Sam, we have some business to get to, and that is that there are some big time games outside of just Texas and Texas A&M. Alabama's got a lot of them. Obviously, with this, it's important to remind people the SEC schedule. This is a one-time thing. very similar to the 2020 schedule. They're just slapping this together. There's going to be some return games that don't get returned. This was, hey, we're going to protect the rivalries. We'll get to 2025, probably 9 games. I would not say that that is a foregone conclusion. I've talked to enough people in Destin that I wouldn't guarantee that, but the Iron Bowl is still there. Alabama plays Georgia again in the regular season. They host Missouri and South Carolina, and then they go to LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. That's a
Woo.
heck of a schedule. God bless them. But these are going to be some incredible games, and Alabama, you know, presumably will have a little bit more security at their quarterback spot after this year. I don't love their 3 options at the moment, but I feel like they'll know what their situation is after the season. So we will see on that front. I would not bet against Jalen Milroe, but I think this is the upside of having Oklahoma and Texas now in the league. Of that, you're going to see some big time stuff here, and I think that Alabama Georgia game obviously is the big headline because those are the 2 best programs in college football right now.
Yeah, and they recruit the most talent. You look at
Yep.
the recruiting rankings; they have pretty much been 1, 2, or somewhere in the top 3 pretty consistently
And we
in
could
recent
presumably see
years.
that game 3 times in 2024.
That's wild. That is wild. But you know what it reminds me of a little bit is in a way. Do you remember when the Colts and the Patriots had a little thing going when Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were there, or back in the
Mm-hmm.
day when the 49ers and the Cowboys in the
Mm-hmm.
mid 90s, they had their thing. There's just this big regular season game. I mean, heck, Alabama and LSU have had it for a while. Definitely when Les Miles was at LSU and Saban was getting it going at Alabama, there was that game of the
Game of the
century,
century.
2011. That this game kind of has that weight to it because
Mm-hmm.
there's so much talent on the roster. So many guys that we're going to see play on Sundays. And the 2 of the greatest coaches in the game who are at the top of their game going at it, of course, who obviously have a lot of familiarity with each other because Kirby was on that staff with Nick Saban. So that's part of, I think, the appeal of making the 16 team conferences, seeing this more often rather than just having to see the same divisional opponents every year. And then, oh, by the way, Alabama goes to LSU and they go to Norman to go play Oklahoma, and they still have the Tennessee game. So those are
Mm-hmm.
going to be really interesting. I'm intrigued to see the Alabama Oklahoma game in Norman. I imagine the atmosphere for that's going to be pretty crazy. Yeah, I think the last time they played was in the playoff in 2018 when Kyler Murray was the OU quarterback. But that's what you look for, and that's what this kind of conference can put up these kind of matchups with regularity.
Yeah. And of course, I'll tell you who's not used to this kind of regularity of these kind of matchups. Oklahoma and Texas. I wrote in that column last night that the SEC's made for TV special was the embodiment of this entire meeting. Could have been an email, and but for whatever it's worth, the SEC gave us what we wanted, and they knew OU Texas. You know what are they doing? And they got them right out of the gate. And I do like that the SEC made it very purposeful that everyone in the entire SEC is going to play Oklahoma or Texas in year 1. That's a great wrinkle because that's what we want, and that's what people want to see. They want to see the new blood, either in Austin or in Norman. And boy, you look at what they've got, and you look at what they're used to, and we've seen some bumpy rides. Oklahoma better get its house in order. Texas better get its house in order. Neither of those programs at the top of their game, but we will see. Oklahoma obviously they have the Texas game, but they host Alabama, host Tennessee, South Carolina, who last time we saw them were ruining Clemson and Tennessee's playoff hopes, and then they go to LSU, to Auburn, to Ole Miss, and then they will make another return trip to Missouri, where the last time I saw them play in Missouri, if I recall correctly, was the overtime upset, I believe, where they ran back the opening kick. I think that was 2010. I was at that game. That's a good game. Anyway, Texas, meanwhile, they get to host Georgia, but they also have Mississippi State, Florida, and Kentucky. Of course, the Oklahoma game, the A&M game, and then go to Arkansas, to Vanderbilt, Texas. A word of note: Arkansas wants to beat you very badly. They seem to be completely lost on
They're
this fact
obsessed.
when they went there a couple years ago. and got absolutely run out of the building. It's going to be the exact same thing. There was nothing special about that particular game. It's that year Texas and Arkansas. Listen, I grew up there. Texas is the one program that Arkansas fans still truly hate. They'll get to see
Yep.
them a lot more now. LSU, there's not a lot of hate there. There was Ole Miss hate for a little bit of time when Houston was there, but Oklahoma and Texas, you wanted the SEC, you got it. They're going to be going in full bore in year one.
Yeah, I think Texas. I heard CDC and Jay Hartzell talk about this, wanting more marquee matchups, especially on their home schedule.
They got them.
And they got them. You got Florida and Georgia coming. That's going to be good. Then hopefully over time, it's not going to happen in 24, but hopefully we're getting A&M every year in the
hmm
matchup. So then you're getting them coming to DKR every year, and hopefully if you end up with the 9 game, then you have Arkansas coming every other year. That's a really bones of a really good home schedule for them. And like you said, they're going to have to ramp it up. They're on a really good trajectory right now. I think that 2023 is going to be so big for both Texas and Oklahoma. Oklahoma to kind of bounce back. Texas seem to try to finally capitalize on all the positive momentum they've had here under Steve Sarkisian. And then I look at Oklahoma's schedule. Having Alabama is going to be a huge one. The Tennessee game, tons of intrigue there because assuming Josh Heupel is the coach there, I have no reason to think he wouldn't be. That's the homecoming for Heupel, which of course he won the national championship there in 2000, but obviously a little bit of a frosty relationship between Heupel and Oklahoma. You know,
To
when he
put it
went back
lightly.
there as offensive went back there as an offensive coordinator, then got fired at the end of the 2014 season. So that there's it's been a very complicated relationship. But if that Tennessee program continues on the trajectory that it's on right now, then that's going to be a huge game when
There'll
they
be a big
play.
one for Nico, presuming
That's
he's
right.
there.
You get Oklahoma going to LSU. A play they the last 2 times they played have been high stakes. They've been played in the Peach Bowl playoff semifinal in 19, which of course we remember LSU. That was the greatest LSU offense, one of the greatest offense of all time. We saw just
I felt bad
absolutely
for Oklahoma
destroy
in that game.
Oklahoma. Yeah, and LSU beat them in 2000, the 2003 season in the
National
04
championship.
BCS championship game.
Yeah.
So that's a good one too. So this is you're going to have to earn it now. This is no longer Oklahoma won 14 Big 12 titles. They won 6 straight at one point. They were really ruling the roost in the conference. That's not really going to be the case in this new league. And then Texas, who has floundered largely since 2009, you're going to have to pick it up when you play against a schedule like this. And oh, by the way, in addition to this SEC schedule, Texas also goes to Michigan in 2024. So
Yeah.
you've got Michigan, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Georgia, Florida, Arkansas all on the schedule. Longhorns, that's a tough one. Good luck. Strap it up.
Yeah. You already had to buckle your chin strap in the SEC. You might need to do it a little bit tighter with Oklahoma and Texas in town. For Sam Khan, I'm David Ubben. Thanks for tuning into the Athletic College Football coverage. We've been writing about this, talking about this, so go ahead and check us out on The Athletic, in the app, or theathletic.com. Thanks for tuning in.